One of the best episodes so far that covers a lot of chapters, but at the same time, some really great added content. It seems Kubo is camping right outside Studio Period to make sure this shit is done right. I'm your host Kyle, and without further ado, let's jump right in. Bleach Episode 3, The Thousand Year Blood War, covers roughly manga chapters 489 to 494, with some pages from 488, which is the largest volume coverage so far for an episode. These chapters contained about 104 pages with 434 panels and much more unique drawings. So let's see what exactly was left out and what was added in. And if I didn't say this already, since we will be covering the latest episode and all the manga chapters, which follows, light spoiler warning. So we start out where the last episode ended, with Ichigo stumbling on Quilge after he took out Tress bestia, which is chapter 489, titled Starcross March. However, there are a few panels that were skipped out at the beginning of the chapter. We actually get a look at the Soul Society, primarily Renji and Rukia. This is where the captain's meeting happened. Kira now had a chance to review the information they found out about the missing people of the Soul Society, and it's this report that had made its way to the captain commander, and later in the episode, this is where the commander would use the information to confront Mayuri. Now we catch up to the anime, where Quilge and Ichigo face off after the initial defeat of Tress bestia, and then from there, he engages Ichigo in a fight. This pretty much is the same in the manga, except Ichigo had made a comment about Eburn's attack after it was revealed that the Quincy knew about him. During the fight, Ichigo makes mention of the type of movement the Quincy are using called Hirankyaku. This is basically the Quincy using the flow of Reishi to move faster, similar to Shumpo, which Hollows use, or Flash Step, which Shinigami use. Once Quilge attacks Ichigo, we have the final part of the captain's meeting. This is where Mayuri would confirm that it is the Quincy that are attacking, and then the captain commander would announce for all Soul Reapers to prepare for battle. In the manga, this final part of the captain's meeting was actually seen in chapter 488. But anyways, this is where the episode would begin. Once the episode starts, this is where we get to see the continuation of the fight between Ichigo and Quilge. After that, His Majesty is alerted to the fight, and this is where he orders the invasion of the Soul Society. The Stern Ritters all prepare for battle, and we get our first title card. The events of the manga are a little bit mixed up, so let's try to break that down. When Quilge fired his first arrow at Ichigo, this is where His Majesty would have received word of the fight, and he would declare that it would be time for the invasion to start. Immediately after that, Mayuri is confronted by the captain commander, where the revelation of him being responsible for the expunging of souls would finally be brought to light. But Mayuri would also confront the captain commander of his own weakness in killing the Quincy King. At the same time, we see orders issued to the Stern Ritter, and this is where they head out. Please note, manga chapter 489 would have the following events: Rukia, Renji, and Kira's discussion of who killed the Rukon district residents, Ichigo's first confrontation with Quilge, His Majesty ordering the Stern Ritter out, and the captain commander being blamed for keeping the Quincy King alive. I know it's a lot to keep track of, but let's keep going. This is where the manga would catch up with the anime, with Quilge's fight with Ichigo and him using the Quincy's Volstern disc. This would also be the start of manga chapter 490. The anime pretty much follows the same as in the manga, except for two things. 1. The manga cuts the fight short at Quilge's transformation reveal. We then switch over to Kisuke with his little banter with Pesce and Dondochaka. Wow, the manga seems to be steamrolling so many plot points pretty quickly, doesn't it? But anyway, right after that, we get a quick glimpse of the Soul Society and the Shinigami getting ready to fight, and it seems that they are being watched. This would be the end of manga chapter 490. And 2, within chapter 491 is where we get Quilge attacking Ichigo in his new form and being surprised when Ion shows up. Tress bestia was healed up, and the manga gives us a short panel of Apache telling Ichigo to get out of the way, as he isn't Ion's target at this time. But that doesn't mean he won't be attacked, and this would be the end of the scene by both the manga and the anime. After Ion's initial attack, we switch over to some anime-only scenes with Ishida searching for information about the Quincy. Now please note that these are all anime exclusive and they're not within the manga. After that, we now get back in sync with the manga. Now we get shots of Ryunosuke and Shino in the Soul Society, wondering what's the strife between them and the Quincy, and we get some really cool exposition from disposable character number 4. In the anime, it interweaves Ishida's investigation into the Quincy as well. But as per usual, the anime removes some of the fighting scenes, or rather you could call them gag scenes, between Shino and Ryunosuke. The manga after this goes right back into the fight between Quilge and Aion, but in the anime we now get to see the confrontation between Captain and Commander and Mayuri. Then it switches over to Aion beating the ever-loving shit out of Quilge. When Quilge finally gets back up after stabbing Apache in the chest, this is where the manga chapter 492 would end. The new chapter would continue right after he starts absorbing all the meat suits and turns into a monster. In the manga, Tress bestia actually made it to Orihime where she protected them, but Quilge found them and then absorbed Orihime's shield. This is where Ichigo would come in. But in the anime, they hadn't made it that far before succumbing to the absorption. In the anime, we now see the scene where Pesce and Kisuke would come in, and then it would switch back to the Soul Society. There are a few differences here with the anime as opposed to the manga. Within the anime, we see the Quincy King floating above the Serete like he's paying about to Shinra Tensei this place straight to hell. Pillars of flame start to erupt, and we see the faces of not only disposable characters, but prominent ones as well, right before Kira should be blown away and kicks the bucket. This is where the Stern Ritter would attack, and we get our first view at their faces. In the manga, the Shinigami actually noticed the king floating in the air before the attack should begin, and this is where the chapter would end. Within manga chapter 494, however, we see the last panels that are not adapted, which I think will follow in the next episode, so I won't spoil it. I'll wait until the next episode to dive into those. As per usual, the manga had a few more details than the anime showed us, as in Rukia's short speech before running off. Byakuya was seen standing in the anime, but in the manga he was seen sitting, and also the Shinigami surrounding the Stern Ritter that killed Kira. And that's pretty much the end of this episode. And holy crap, this episode was jam-packed with a lot from the manga. Bleach episode 3 roughly covered about 7 chapters of the manga, well, more like 6.2, give or take, with each having an average of 17 pages, adding up to about 104 pages, and each having an average of around 65 panels, which all added up to 434 panels, with 82 of those being unique or not adapted. This means that only 352 panels were adapted, giving us a split of roughly about 82% of all that were adapted into the anime, while 18% was left out. Now that we covered that, it's time we look at some details that you missed in the episode or the manga. Don't worry, there won't be any spoilers. Tress bestia. When Ichigo first engaged Quilge in battle, he threw Nell over to Orihime. Within the anime, we saw where she instantly started to heal Aizen's assisted Arankars, like she did before in the Arankar arc. However, in the manga, we see that she was the one to heal Tress bestia enough for them to rejoin the fight and summon Aion. Just in case some of you were wondering, how the heck did they get back in the battle after that? Also, Orihime was healing this random guy. Any guesses as to who it is? Anyone who gets it right in the comments gets their own Zanpakuto. Investigation. At the time of the disappearances, Kira launched his own look into what happened to the people of the Rukan district. This is where he discovered the truth based on the fact that the research and development team didn't investigate at first. It would mean that somehow they would be involved. As thus, he must have been the one who directed the report to Captain Commander. And this is just speculation, so don't at me, okay? The Quincy King. During the invasion of the Soul Society, this is where His Majesty would appear floating in the air. Within the manga, a few Shinigami had seen him and had commented that he was inside the barrier. For those who watched Bleach since season 1, you'd know that a Serete is surrounded by a very sturdy barrier, which can only be entered from one of the gates or the Senkaimon, or some other harebrained plan. Now, this isn't as easy as it sounds, but what could that mean exactly? How did they get into the Serete without using any doors? This is a bit of spoiler territory, and maybe that's why it was left out in the anime, with him just seen floating. Again, I'll leave that out for now, but you can pretty much guess where this is going. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm really proud of this video. I made it much faster than usual. But anyway, thank you so much for the support on the last manga breakdown. You guys smashed it out of the park, so let's get this one even further. But if you haven't checked out that video as yet, here's a link to it on screen. Leave me a like and let me know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get this underrated channel to 3,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Thank you again for joining me, V Nation. Peace out and stay safe out there.